Up Your Game with CMO Coaches is for current and aspiring chief marketing officers. Each episode will feature one of our experienced CMO coaches focusing on a topic that they are passionate about to help you up your game. Today I've got Kip, the founder of CMO Coaches, the only coaching network consisting of former CMOs who are now certified executive coaches. Kip's worked in 60 countries around the world. He started his career at P&G in brand management and held numerous senior executive roles at PepsiCo, Yum Brands, eBay, H&R Block, including CMO at Taco Bell and president of H&R Block. He's also an author. Kip is co-author of Crafting Persuasion, a leader's handbook to change minds and influence behavior, and the author of Learn to Leap: How Leaders Turn Risk into Opportunities. Welcome to Up Your Game with CMO Coaches, Kip.
Thanks, Alan. I'm really excited to be here on our premiere podcast for this exciting endeavor.
Same. This is exciting to do, exciting to be a part of, and looking forward to the conversation. I know today's topic, we're going to talk about how to be a better team leader. The role of a team leader is really complex. And if you're currently leading a team, you're likely managing a diverse group of team members from different generations. You got boomers, Gen X like me, millennials, and Gen Z. Each generation is driven by unique incentives and values, making the task of leadership challenging. On top of this, hybrid and fractional work has not made it any easier. It's made it more difficult for team members to get to know each other and work well together. Kip's managed teams all kinds and all sizes all around the world, and he wanted to share some of the key management principles he's learned about how to become a great team leader. Let's start off having you define what is a great manager.
I'm gonna define that in just a second, but before I even answer the first question, let's just talk a little bit about the podcast since it is the first episode. And why are we doing this?
Yeah.
I love marketing. Always have. I was very lucky in college. A lot of people really go through a lot of angst as to what do I want to do when I grow up. Well, I know I want to be in marketing and have been in that uh, mode for the last almost 50 years, believe it or not. And it's a tough profession. It's lonely. It's scary. It's changing. And so part of what we're doing with CMO Coaches is hopefully helping out some of our fellow marketers, especially when they need the help. And the reason we call it Up Your Game is we absolutely want people to come away from these podcast episodes with some real practical information on what can they do to be a better marketer and a better leader. So with that as the reason why we're here, let me define what I think a great manager is. You've probably had a great teacher in your, growing up through all the education you've had, right, Alan?
Oh, yeah, of course.
And when you think of a great teacher, what's your primary emotion that you have?
Honestly, this sounds weird, but love.
I,
Love.
I think love's a very good emotion there. And I think that my definition of a great manager would tie into love. A great manager is somebody that believes in someone even when they don't believe in themselves. They're down on the floor, you're just crushed. They've had a real big setback emotionally. They're devastated, and you're the one to come along and grab by the arm and pick them up and go, "Come on, you're better than this. You can get back in the game. Let's go." It's the same thing a great coach does or a great teacher does. They believe in you, and I think emotions are contagious. So my definition of a great leader is they're going to pick you up and dust you off and get you back in the game when you need the most.
Right. Well, I think we talk about leaders, we think about building teams. When you think about it, what's more important, building your team or building the business? How do those work together?
Well, I wish I could tell you either or, but this is a multiple choice answer that's C, both of the A above, A and B. I dropped off my car this morning to get some work done on it. And I've known the service manager there for a long time. And unfortunately, some people might have heard of this ransomware attack they've had literally in 12,000 car dealers around the US. It's been horrific. It's really put a crimp on sales. It's really hurt a lot of people in terms of their ability to do what they're supposed to do, sell cars, service cars. And so this guy was supposed to have gone on a vacation this past week, and he canceled it voluntarily. Worked around the clock trying to, salvage what they could of the customers that were trying to get the car either sold or serviced. And so he tells me, as I was sitting in his office this morning, that the general manager called everybody in for a 6:30 a.m. meeting, and he thought it was going to be an attaboy. Like, boy, this team really came together. I'm so proud. And well, instead, the general manager gets up there and goes, "So let me just tell you how disappointed I am with you losers."
Oh man.
And you can imagine what the service manager's reaction to all this was. Look, I'm bleeding all over the floor for you, and this is the way you thank me. So you've got to do both. At Procter and Gamble, I was taught, at a very early age, that if your people love you, but the business is tanking, you're dead. Um, and if the business is booming, but your people hate coming to work because they can't stand working with you, you're dead too. So the tip I would give to this general manager is the worst of both those worlds is crush the business and crush your people. You've got to care about both. You've got to work on both, and you've got to do it both at the same time. It's not either or. It's both.
Hmm. Well, what's the most critical thing a manager can do that most team leaders don't do?
Well, again, I'm going to pick on this general manager one more time.
Yeah.
Meg Flitman, when I was at eBay, taught me that there are a whole bunch of different currencies that you can pay people in. You can pay them with salary, with bonus, with stock options, with extra time off. And those are all wonderful things and people appreciate them, but they tend to be fairly short term in nature. I mean, you get a raise and literally a month later, it's like, well, whatever. But when's the last time you got an authentic show of appreciation by somebody, either in writing or in person? Um, One thing that one of my bosses, Peter Hurl, taught me is the power of a handwritten note. Good Lord. I mean, when I was president of H&R Block, I wrote each of my 32 district managers a handwritten note at the beginning of the tax season. And I don't think they were sucking up to me. I mean, I'd go in their office, they had that sucker pinned to the wall, and they would read it every day in terms of uh, what I was expecting from them, how much I appreciated them. And the weird thing about appreciation is it costs you nothing. It's zero cost. And yet, for a lot of these managers, you would think it's the most precious metal on earth. They got to hoard it. They can't give it to anybody else. It's only for them. No, you've got an unlimited amount of appreciation that you can give out. And you know, they worry about giving up too much appreciation. I've never met an employee that said, you know what? I really can't stand my boss. He's just telling me all the time what a great job I'm doing. I'm really sick of it. I mean, I guess there's a limit to it, but most people suffer from the opposite of that. There's an absolute desert of appreciation. I think as team leaders, we'd go a long way if we could just show a little genuine appreciation when people deserve it.
Yeah. Well, things don't always go the way you plan. So when a team member really screws up, what should a team leader do? What is it? What should they think about?
Well, we had the pleasure of living over in England for about 3 years, and this is something I learned from the Brits: praise in public, coach in private. And Alan, you've probably had this happen. Have you ever been reprimanded either via email or worse, in person in front of your teammates by your boss?
Oh yeah.
How did that
Oh
How
yeah.
did that feel, Alan?
Not great, not great. And not only did it not feel good, like if I was responsible for doing some aspect of the program, it tarnished my ability to do that. Like,
Right,
how do you recover
right.
from that? So yeah,
Yeah, in Asia, that is considered losing face, and obviously
right.
that is the worst thing that can happen to you. So I really believe the Brits have it right. To my earlier part about showing appreciation, obviously, it's best shown publicly.
Mhm.
Praise in public. Let people know when they're doing a great job. Let them serve as a role model for what you want other people to do. If somebody is really screwed up, maybe there are some extenuating circumstances that you're not even aware of. Like maybe they've got a crisis at home, or maybe they
Mhm.
didn't get the key information they were supposed to get. Most people don't wake up in the morning going, "Man, I really want to go screw up today." They typically are wanting to do their best. So by coaching in private, you can take the time to understand the background, the situation, the options, and at best, it can be a learning opportunity. and something that somebody will go, okay, I own it, I understand it, but and it will not happen again, and you move on. But if you do that in public, you've destroyed the ability for a lot of that to happen. So again,
Mm,
praise in public, coach in private is a great management principle for a great team leader to keep in mind.
awesome. Well, if you think about personal development, professional development, who should be responsible for the professional development of the team members?
Well, ultimately, it's on the individual. You cannot delegate career management to anybody. Um, with that said, I think it's really important for the company or the organization to provide a really good framework for that to happen. There should be annual performance reviews and annual talent reviews. And those are two very different things. I mean, performance reviews, how'd you do? And then talent review is okay, who's on the bench? How are we developing our team? What's our backfill plan, et cetera, et cetera. Um, every company should also have a very thoughtful development plan that they encourage and frankly expect all of the team members to follow.
Mm,
And they should also make sure that at the end of the day, the manager is the ultimate resource that the employee is going to go to and say, hey, Alan, a year from now, I want to be promoted. And you've told me I need to do A, B, and C. Well, in order to do that, here's where I need your help. I want to go to a seminar. I want to take on an extra project. And I want to take on some increased responsibility to demonstrate that I'm ready for the promotion. Can you help me? And great managers proactively go to their employees and say, let's talk about your development plan on a regular basis. And they proactively say, how can I help you out? If somebody comes in and they're a great performer and they say, hey, I quit, and the manager is shocked, then guess who that is on? That is on the manager. The manager, if they were doing their job, would have been fully aware that that employee was not feeling that they were getting what they needed there and they had to go look somewhere else.
wow.
So ultimately, it's up to you, but you certainly should look to your company and your team leader, for a lot of support in getting to where you want to go professionally.
We hear a lot about emotional intelligence or EQ and curiosity quotient or CQ today. What is it, and why is that important when being a great team leader?
Okay, so IQ, EQ, CQ. IQ, I'm going to assume most team leaders have a certain amount of intelligence. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten as far as they've gotten. Where team leaders seem to be lacking are in the other two. EQ, what is that? Well, that's just emotional intelligence. That's basically it's empathy. It's the ability to really read the room, understand where people are coming from, having an active interest in terms of how the employees are doing overall. I'm not saying to be, you know, nosy or trying to know things that you really shouldn't have to worry about. But on the other
Right.
hand, if you've got somebody who is struggling a bit and you want to get a little bit more appreciation for why are they struggling, is it something going on at home? Is it a medical issue? Is it, a psychological issue? What is it? Uh, that's a whole lot more helpful to have that framework as opposed to treating everybody the same and assuming that nothing outside of work ever goes wrong. It does. And as a team leader, you should be aware of that and you should make sure you take, account of that when you're trying to figure out what to do to make it better. In terms of CQ, that stands for curiosity quotient. And what does that mean? Well, that means keeping an open mind, encouraging your team to be creative in terms of problem solving and be willing to take some risk and do some experiments to see what may or may not work. That's a heck of a lot more fun to be on a team like that than it is about this is the way we do things. We always have, we always will, and shut up
Right.
and get back to work. Who wants to work on that team? So EQ and CQ are very, very important for a team leader to actively work on in leading the team.
Right. And it seems like IQ is table stakes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, what's the best way for a team leader to work with team members on resolving unexpected problems? They those things occur all the time, but like how should I work with them?
Well, the best thing to do is for a team leader to encourage people not just to bring them problems, and obviously they have to, especially unexpected problems, but in addition to that, to come to them with some possible ideas of what they can do about it. I mean, there's a big difference between saying, hey, I don't think that marketing campaign's working versus, hey, I don't think the marketing campaign's working. I've done some analysis. I think the key thing is we're in the wrong media channels. I think we ought to, at a minimum, do some experiments. And I've got a specific proposal here that we can start testing tomorrow. What do you think, boss? I mean, who would you rather have on your team? And that is learned behavior. And by doing it that way, I think you have a couple of advantages. First of all, you open up their mind to some possibilities. And frankly, they're probably more expert at a lot of this stuff than you are. And second, it gives you the opportunity to have some joint ownership. Because if all they're going to do is tell you, here's the problem, you tell them here's the solution, go implement it. If that doesn't work, who do you think's going to feel, well, that was his idea, not mine. You want a
Right.
team effort against this. And,
Yeah.
and plus, it's just a lot more fun to work on a team where you can brainstorm and, bounce around a couple of different solutions and red team, blue team, devil's advocate, the whole bit, because that's where a diverse team and diverse thinking can really come up with the best solution.
Mm. Now, if you're a leader, you got to make tough
Yeah.
decisions. How is the best way for a team leader to make those difficult decisions?
Well, I worked for the same guy for about 20 years, a guy named Bill Cobb. He started off at PepsiCo. Uh, we ended up at Yum. We I followed him over to eBay, and then ultimately I followed him over to H&R Block. So I had a boss for 2 decades, and he was an amazing boss, and we're still good friends. And one of Bill's big mantras was disagree and commit. Now, what does disagree and commit mean, Alan? Well, um, when you work on a business team, guess what? It ain't a democracy. You're not taking a vote and may the majority. The team leader is going to make the call. But what
Right.
disagree and commit means is that Bill expected everybody in that room, when it came to a really tough decision, to really argue passionately about what they thought the right thing to do was. And ideally have a couple of different points of view. But here's where the commit part comes in. At the end of the debate's over, the leader makes the call, and you march out of that room totally aligned. And there is no Monday morning quarterbacking. There's no grousing about, well, that's a stupid solution. Why did we do that? I mean, that will kill any momentum or chance you've got of success totally. So disagree and commit is one of those mantras that he would recite on a daily basis. And as a team leader, I've tried to do the same because being in business is tough and making tough decisions is not easy. And so by having a committed team to the answer, your odds of success go up dramatically. So that's how you make tough decisions.
Mm. What do you do with a team member who doesn't respect the team's culture?
Well, I love theater. In fact, one of the things you probably don't know about me, I've written and produced a musical. Can you believe it?
Wow.
When I was back
No, I did not know that.
when I was back at Procter and Gamble, yeah, we produced a musical. I love theater. I always have, always will, always belong. Love to go to community theater. What I tell my folks is, if you love drama, leave it at the theater, because if you bring drama to work, it is not going to work. And I say that for a couple of reasons. First of all, on occasion, you will have somebody on your team that you will think is trying out for Survivor or Housewives of Atlanta. I mean, they are just toxic behavior. They're gossiping, they're backstabbing, they're trash talking, they're being, passive aggressive, all that stuff. And you just got to make it crystal clear as team leader, that is not going to work. That is
Right.
outside the bounds of acceptable behavior. And your team will respect you for that, because frankly, some team members will see how much they can get away with. And if you're real
Mm.
clear up front as to this is okay, this is not, you will have a much better chance of not having drama at work. And drama is poison. I mean, again, business is hard enough as it is. You don't need to point the guns outside the force. You don't need to be pointing any guns inside the fort. It's team together, team apart, and everybody try to play nice and help each other out, and it'll go a lot better.
Awesome. Well, when things don't always go great, what's one of the biggest mistakes you see a team leader and a team make when the business just isn't performing as it should?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've had to fire some folks. I'm gonna use the word fire. I could say let go, but fire is, the more descriptive term. I've been fired, so I know what
Right.
it feels like. But the biggest mistake I've seen team leaders make is, in their gut, They know it's not working out. They know it's just not a good fit. It's not to say that the person is not a good person or they're not trying hard or they don't have a incredible future ahead of them. It's just that in this particular role at this particular time in the company, it is not a good fit. And at that point, they got to go find their happy place somewhere else. And the sooner you can go ahead and accept that as reality and let the other person know and work out a plan in which they exit with dignity and they exit feeling good about the whole experience, the better off it is for everybody. Now, if you happen to be on the losing end of that and you're one of the people being fired, the other bit of advice I would give you is uh, go out and as a role model, do a master class on how to exit because I've seen the opposite of that. And the movie doesn't end well. You do a lot of brand destruction for your own brand if you don't handle it well. But as team leader, to help somebody figure out what they really need to go do is the most powerful thing you can do for them, and do it when your gut says it, right? Not delay and oh maybe it'll come around. It won't. Go ahead and just cut the
Right.
cord, and you'll both be better off for it, guaranteed.
Right. But when's the right time to let that team member go who's not cutting it, not performing?
I think it totally depends upon a whole bunch of stuff. It depends upon the level. It depends upon, frankly, the state of the business. I mean, if the business is in full crisis mode, you probably don't have the luxury of even giving a
Right.
little bit more time. But I think it depends. But Alan, I've done this enough. Your gut will tell you. And frankly, when you sit down with the person, it is a relief because guess what? Their gut told them the same thing. They know it's not working. So
That's true.
yeah, just do it. Just get it over with and move on, and you'll both be better off.
Well, we've covered a lot of great principles today. Which one do you think is the most important that we should take away from today's conversation? They're all important, but which one would you?
Well, I'm going to throw one more into the mix just for fun because I think it's a bit of a macro principle, and that is something at PepsiCo they taught us, and that is shadow of the leader. Now, what does shadow of the leader mean? It means that, believe it or not, as the leader, people are going to study you like you cannot believe. They're going to be studying your body language. They're going to be listening to your tone of voice. They're going to be trying to infer from your emails, what's the hidden message in here? They will study you like you cannot believe. And the more you can role model the kind of behavior that you're looking for in each and every team member, in terms of a lot of the things I've talked about here, in terms of, disagree and commit and helping your teammates out and believing in people when they don't believe in themselves and all that other good stuff, the greater the possibility or probability that your team is going to perform at a very high level. And frankly, um, if you do the opposite of that, you're dead because if your team doesn't respect you as a hardworking, honest, ethical leader, what hope have you got to go out there and lead them through adversity? So, shadow of the leader is something that whenever I've been in charge of a team, I've tried to keep that in mind on a daily basis. And frankly, one of the biggest rewards of being a leader, just like one of the greatest rewards of being a great teacher, is for somebody to come back 5, 10, 20 years later and go, you know what? When I worked for you, that was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I just want to thank you. And I've had any number of people tell me that. So I would hold that up as a bit of a gold standard. Can you be a strong enough team leader that people are going to come back later on and say, that was one of the greatest experiences I ever had in my career? I mean, that'd be pretty cool.
Love it. Well, that's Up Your Game with CMO Coaches. Kip, it's been fun doing the first episode.
Thanks, Alan. I've enjoyed it.
If you like that conversation with Kip, check the show notes. There's going to be a link to an article that goes into much more detail about all of the great leadership principles he talked about today. This episode of Up Your Game is brought to you by CMO Coaches. If you want to work with a coach, visit cmocoaches.com. This episode is brought to you in collaboration with Club CMO. Club CMO is an exclusive member organization that brings together chief marketing officers and other senior marketing executives for networking, knowledge sharing, and professional development. Through a peer-led, no-selling environment, the club provides exclusive access for marketing leaders to connect, exchange ideas, and stay up to date on industry trends and everyday challenges. This content was produced by Sam Robertson.